Where are the aliens? Maybe they're among us, I don't know.
Eddie Murphy is back. But this time, he's looking for a missing child, a golden child.
This child is special, Mr. Giraud. His destiny is to save the world.
By the time he finds you, it will be too late.
The golden child.
My dear sweet brother Nupsi! I can see you're busy right now.
Something is always happening. But when it happens, people don't always see it, or understand it, or accept it.
So if something happens to the kid, the whole world goes to hell?
The world will become hell.
Ah. Not far from that now. Listen, who would want to take the kid anyway?
Those who want evil rather than good.
Well, could you tell me why the people that took him are trying to make him eat blood? Well, could you tell me why the people that took him are trying to make him eat blood?
Nothing in this world will hurt him. But if he were to pollute himself with anything impure, he would become vulnerable.
Okay. So if he eats the blood, they could kill him.
Yes.
But when it happens, people don't always see it, or understand it, or accept it. People don't always see it.
But why is the child still alive?
You have no reason to fear him. He is surrounded at all times and in all the four directions by evil.
Do not underestimate the power of good, and do not dismiss the strength of the child. Time grows short. The child will never eat the blood.
What must I do?
Move the child before the chosen one draws near.
And to kill him?
The Ajanti dagger. It is not of this world.
And to kill him?
The Ajanti dagger. It is not of this world. With it you could kill the child.
But Lord, it is so well guarded. How can I...
Offer to exchange the child for it. They can refuse nothing for his safe return. Use the Ajanti dagger. With it, you need no other evil. Use the dagger to kill the child.
Jesus Christ.
Where are the aliens? Maybe they're among us. I don't know.
Look up the word Sheol in many Bible translations. You will find that it's often translated as hell. However, the modern concept of hell does not line up with the biblical descriptions of Sheol. The word Sheol occurs 65 times in the Hebrew Bible. The King James Bible translates 31 of those occurrences as hell, another 31 as grave, and 3 as pit. And 3 as pit. Why would Bible translators use different concepts to translate the same word? This causes a lot of confusion about death. But he refused to be comforted, and he said, "For I shall go down to hell." The word hell is used approximately 54 times in most Bibles and is translated from several different words, including Sheol, Hades, Gehenna, and Tartarus. In Greek mythology, Tartarus is a deep abyss that was used as a dungeon of torment. Original use in etymology, the word hell literally means to cover or conceal, and may have simply referred to the ground covering over a dead person. The word hell literally means to cover. Tartarus is a deep abyss that was used as a dungeon of torment.
The rings of Saturn are very well known. They're this gorgeous set of rings circling the planet. It turns out that Jupiter also has rings, but these rings are made of dust, so they're hard to see. In fact, they were only discovered by the Voyager spacecraft. Before that, we didn't know that Jupiter had rings. They're caused by small satellites that Jupiter has moving around the planet close in. These satellites are releasing some dust from their surfaces, and that dust forms the rings. That's why they're so difficult to see from the Earth. When you get close up with the spacecraft, they're obviously easier to see.
Jupiter's ring system is faint and is made up of dust and tiny dark pieces of rock. It is made up of dust and tiny dark pieces of rock. This is a picture caught by NASA's Galileo spacecraft. An eclipse of the Sun by Jupiter, as viewed from Galileo, reveals the rings. Small dust particles high in Jupiter's atmosphere, as well as the dust particles that compose the rings, can be seen by reflected sunlight. No one knew Jupiter had rings until the 1970s, when the Voyager 1 spacecraft visited the planet. They are pretty difficult to see, except when backlit by the sun. The ring system is composed of 3 parts. The main ring, a halo that orbits closer to Jupiter, and a very wide gossamer ring that extends far from Jupiter. So, the rings are made of dust kicked up by collision impacts. But if the impacts on the moon were any larger, then the larger dust thrown up would be pulled back down to the moon's surface by gravity. In order for the rings to exist, they must constantly be replenished with new dust from the moons.
Hello again. So what's happening around town? Around town being Jupiter. What's with these rings that until recently people didn't know, and the catches allowed people to know, but they're not learning fast. Well, the monkeys, the humans, that the Vlash on Earth allowed to explore space a little bit. Anyway, so the rings. Number 1, we talk about size. You know, size matters. Either be big, small, or just the right size. Depends on what we're talking about. On the video, they were saying, you know, the small rocks. What? The size of a Volkswagen, a bicycle, a cargo ship? What? No. It depends. There's all kinds. There's rocks the size of Boeing 747s, others the size of a car, others the size of a cargo ship. There's all kinds of rocks. They don't know. Their idea of size is very strange. And then there's dust, a lot of dust. So there's rocks, big rocks, medium-sized rocks, small rocks, huge rocks, huge. Some are the size of countries on Earth. So imagine, there's all kinds. And then there's a lot of dust. What is this? What are these rings? I mean, it's 2 kinds of things. One, it is just rocks because of the gravitational power that Jupiter has. A lot of, you know, small comets and on, all kind of dust, space dust, comes to our galaxy or is hanging out around the galaxy and gets too close to Jupiter and just stays there. It's 90%. 90% of the rings of Jupiter are literally rocks, or whatever you want to call it, and dust. 90%. 10% is not. But those 90% of rocks and dust, we're talking about trillions and trillions and millions of trillions. You know Jupiter, how big Jupiter is. Now you measure the circumference around it. Talk about trillions and trillions and hundreds of millions of trillions of rocks and dust. And 90% of what's circling around Jupiter, the rings of Jupiter, are rocks and dust. 10% are not. But even when we're talking about 10%, we're talking about trillions, not thousands, not billions, trillions of objects which are not rocks or dust. 10% are not rocks and dust. And we're still talking trillions. So what are they? Well, Shostakovich is called Alien Cemetery, which is where ships, or parts of ships, are there, just floating around because of gravitation. Maybe Vlash ships or parts of Vlash ships, might be Meter ships, Caristus ships, and other alien ships. Might be ships of alien races allied to the Vlash or Meter, or allied to the Caristus and the Anunnaki. 10%, and this is in the trillions, are parts of alien ships. We call it the Alien Cemetery. Now, when because there's always battles going around Jupiter, well, you have to Google all those explosions going around Jupiter or hitting Jupiter. Do you remember the video which I already showed you, one of the episodes? It was called Jupiter Beyond the Veil. I showed you part 3. Let me show a little bit of part 1 and how the monkeys at NASA are always happy when there's explosions around Jupiter. They don't know. Some do, because some work in NASA are Vlash hybrids, Meta hybrids, and even Caristus hybrids. But those are not laughing. Let me show you.
Astronomers have witnessed 5 massive explosions on the planet Jupiter as fragments from the shoemaker Levy collided with the planet. Larger explosions are expected later this week.
They called it the biggest explosion in the solar system for hundreds of years. Half an hour after the first comet fragment went in, the impact was still visible. The cloud of debris spread out for thousands of miles and was over 1,000 miles high. The astronomers were jubilant.
We're going to see things and we're going to learn a lot. That's the good news tonight.
I walked across
As you can imagine, there are not thousands of alien races. There are trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of alien races. All kinds of looks. Some might scare you if you see them in the middle of the night. Others are more normal to your sight for what you are used to. You know, some alien races are what you know as a human from the waist up, but from the waist down are different, totally different. Others, from the waist down, they look like humans. From the waist up, they look totally different. There's trillions out there, and many of them come to Earth every year, every day. They just don't cause problem. They don't stay for too long. They have nothing to do with this. They leave. When there's a battle around Jupiter, especially a big battle, and alien ships that are against Carishus and Anunnaki and they get destroyed. We don't care if there's people inside, either be Vlash, Met, or others, still alive. They've been hit, they're disabled. Now they're part of one of the rocks around Jupiter. The rocks that these guys were talking about. There's rocks of that. Sometimes we don't destroy the entire ship, only part of the ship. It breaks in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 100. And there's Vlash and Metra and their races inside, still alive. Those rocks that they call rocks, parts of ships. We don't do any rescue missions for them. We just let them there until they die. Unless it's a very important person. It's a very important Vlash or Met or someone else, a VIP, then we might try to get him for information or to get something in return. Otherwise, they'll just stay there. They are a rock around Jupiter. A lot of those rocks also have Carishus inside, because Carishus ships get destroyed too there. If we know they're alive inside the ship, we go there and try to rescue them. If they're dead, they're dead. So there's plenty of Carishus also floating around Jupiter, in the rings of Jupiter. We don't go and rescue them because they're dead. Let them be there. Eventually, we do, but it's not a priority. They're already dead. About the dust, there's also a lot of dust, which is debris, small debris, but in different sizes. Debris from ships. Not everything is just dust, dirt. No. A lot of the debris or the dust you were listening to on those when those guys were talking are ships, just tiny pieces of ship. Some are the size of this snail, others bigger, but a lot of that debris not always dust, a lot is smaller spaces when the ship explodes. Sometimes some parts break off from the main ship and they're huge, others They're obliterated and they're very small. So now you know the kind of stuff goes around town. I have a lot more to say and show about this. And show. So take it easy. Have a good week. Now you know. Cheers.
At any rate, that is what we're going to try to do.
Where are the aliens? Maybe they're among us. I don't know.